Hello everybody and welcome back. We are back in England and I thought it'd be fun to tell you what I've been reading and what I'm hoping to read this month. February is halfway done. It is February 16th today and I haven't filmed up until this point. I got here on the 13th because I've just been settling back in, but I have been reading and I'm so happy to be back here and be with Leon and to be reading these amazing books. I've been reading so many wonderful things, and like I have been feeling at the end of 2024 and beginning of 2025, I have been reading amazing books. I don't even know how to tell you about the first book that I want to talk to you about. So before I left, I was in the middle of reading a book. I had about 80 pages left, but I didn't want to bring it with me on the plane because I have so many books here and I didn't want to bring any other books that I would eventually have to bring back to New York. So anyway, I got it on my phone. So I just want to talk about the beauty that is the Libby app. This is not sponsored by Libby. I just genuinely adore this app. It's an audiobook and ebook app that I use through my library, and you basically just put your library card number in and it accesses all of the books and Kindle and ebooks through your library, and you can download them onto your Kindle or you could get them on your phone. The book that I didn't want to bring back with me, I got on my phone. For some reason, they weren't letting me put it onto my Kindle, so I just read it on my phone, and that's kind of part of the story. So the book is The Snow Child by Eowyn Ivey. Oh my goodness, I loved this book so much, and I think everyone needs to read it. It is such a beautiful, exquisitely written story, and so I had about 80 pages left to read when I left New York, and I could only read them on my phone. And so I didn't end up reading them like on my plane journey over, but the other day, I think like 2 days ago, I was sitting down on the sofa and I thought, you know what, let me just read a little bit of the Snow Child. I really want to finish it. I said to Leon, I want to finish it within the next 2 or 3 days because I knew I had 80 pages. I didn't know how much I wanted to read in one sitting. Anyway, so I was on my phone and I was reading The Snow Child sitting on the sofa, and it felt like 5 minutes went by, but I ended up finishing the book. It was just so unexpected because the app told me that I had a certain amount of pages left, but what I didn't realize was that the last section of the book was the acknowledgements, it was an interview with the author, it was a bunch of extra materials, like extra content that I thought was the story. So I'm flipping through, I'm reading, and the ending is so... I don't even want to say anything about it, but oh my gosh, I was just like speed reading through the whole thing. And because it was on my phone and the screen is small, I was just zipping right through it. And then I get to the end and it just goes from one page to epilogue. And I was like, wait, what? So that was crazy, but it was a perfect ending and it's a new favorite book. I said in my last video, which was my January wrap-up, that I had a feeling, or I thought or I hoped that it would be a new all-time favorite because in January, I don't know if you saw my last video, my January wrap-up, I read like 3 or 4 5-star new favorites, which is insane. In 1 month, the first month of the year, I feel like I've already read books competing to be my favorite book of the year already, and there are now 5 of them probably with The Snow Child. So The Snow Child is an all-time favorite. If you don't know what it's about, it is set in the 1920s in Alaska. It's based on a Russian folktale called The Snow Child, where this older couple is distraught by the fact that they can't have their own child. They try to conceive and they just can't have a child, and one day they build a child out of snow and that child comes to life, and it's about how the child affects their lives and how they affect the child's lives, and it goes into a lot more than that in The Snow Child, but it's just, oh my god, one of the most truly one of the most beautifully written books I've ever read. This is when you know I loved a book. The second I finished it, I was researching about Eowyn Ivey. I was watching every interview she's ever done, and she just came out with a new book called Blackwood's Blue Sky, I believe. It just came out, I think, February 4th of 2025. And then she also has another novel she came out with a few years ago called To the Bright Edge of the World. And I desperately want more of her writing, but I also don't want to read everything she's written. But I'm so excited by discovering her as a new favorite author. So she's also from Alaska, and how she wrote about Alaska in The Snow Child is one of my favorite, I guess, like literary devices where you make the setting feel like its own character. I think that that creates such a strong reading experience because you're not only connected to the characters, but you're really connected to the setting, and it just creates such a strong, well-rounded story. And I just simply adored it, and it has truly become one of my all-time favorite books now. And I'm kind of devastated that I finished it because I just want to keep reading it. So yes, that was The Snow Child. That was the first book I read in February. I haven't read anything else in February. I read 8 or 9 books. I think I read 9 books in January, and I've only read 1 in February, and it's halfway through the month. I did have an Etsy restock. I have been traveling, so I'm giving myself a bit of grace, but I do want to read a bit more in the second half of this month, just because I'm also just so excited to read now that life and travels have settled down a bit. The book that I started on my Kindle, I started it at the airport, and it's on my 2025 TBR. If you haven't seen that video, I have a list that I am trying to read every single book on this specific TBR. Every year since I've been on BookTube, or just generally as a reader, I always make TBRs for myself and I never actually stick to them. And so this year I really wanted to dedicate reading this TBR because most of the books on the list are books that I've been putting off or books that have been on my TBR for a really long time. And I'm really excited about all the books that I put on that list, and I really just want to prioritize those. So the book that is on that TBR that I started at the airport is Britt Marie Was Here by Fredrik Backman. Fredrik Backman is one of my all-time favorite authors. I have read every single book of his that's backlisted, besides, I know he's coming out with a new book this year called My Friends, but this is the last book I have of his to read. I have read every single book that he's written except this one because I've been putting off having read all of his books. I just was devastated by the fact that I would have no new Fredrik Backman book to read. Not new to me. Anyway, so I started reading Britt Marie. Let's see what chapter I'm on. I was reading last night. I am on chapter 15. I'm on page 126 out of 326. Oh wow, okay. Very nice. I've really been enjoying it. It's reminding me a lot of his novel called A Man Called Uwe. A Man Called Uwe is one of my favorite books of all time. I just wasn't expecting it to have so many of the same tropes and themes, but those are tropes and themes that I love. So if I hadn't read A Man Called Uwe, I think I would adore this so much, but I think because I'm comparing them, because they're quite similar in like structure and character archetype, that I'm like, oh wow, like this is quite similar. I think that's just it's taking me out of the story a little bit. Anyway, it's not really a complaint, it's just an observation, and I'm enjoying it a lot so far, and I'm excited to keep reading, and I'm excited by the fact that I can now say I have read all of his books, and I can just continue to look forward to his new releases. So that's really exciting. And then the other book that I am in the middle of is, of course, The Magic Mountain by Thomas Mann. I am that much of the way through. I think I'm on chapter 30. It's called Sudden Enlightenment. And I started reading this before I traveled here, but I borrowed a copy from the library, and so that's why it doesn't really look like I've read this copy, because I literally just got here and started reading from it. So what do I want to say about this? I don't want to say too much, but I'm really enjoying it so far. I think the topics that Thomas Mann is discussing in this book is really fascinating. I love what he's doing with the setting, because we are set in a sanatorium in the Swiss Alps, and obviously it's high up in the mountains, and the way that they distinguish the characters that are at the sanatorium to the real world is really interesting because it almost feels like two separate planes of life in a way. And he manipulates time in a really interesting way as well, and how the people's lives at the sanatorium kind of just feel like they're flowing differently in terms of like time and pace than everyone else in like the normal world down below. This book is very meditative, it's very thoughtful, and I really am enjoying the discussions and the critiques of the different people at the sanatorium. So I'm enjoying it quite a lot, and I can't wait to keep reading and to talk to you guys about it. We're reading this for the Game of Tomes book club. I'm not sure if I said that. Emma and I are reading this with all of you guys. If you want to join us on Fable, there will be a link in my description. So yes, I am excited to keep reading this one as well. And then speaking of book clubs, I am also reading, I actually haven't started it yet because I've been so busy, but now that I'm here and things are settling down, we are reading Hamlet for the Well-Read Book Club, which is my book club. And if you want to join my book club, it will be linked in the description as well. I'm not going to show you anything, but yesterday I finished redesigning the crew neck. If you guys didn't know, I have been making merch for my book club, and I designed one crew neck, and the design didn't come out exactly how I wanted it, so I redesigned it. I just finished redesigning it, and I think I love it even more, like way, way more than the original design, so I'm kind of glad that that one didn't work out and that I was forced to redesign it, because I just am so incredibly happy with it. So I'm so excited to share that with you guys. But yes, so we are reading Hamlet. I haven't started it yet. It is one of my favorite Shakespeare plays. I'm so excited to reread it and discuss it with everyone on Fable. It has so many of my favorite lines that I can't wait to re-experience. I think I want to read it, like I want to actually physically read the play, and I also want to watch a stage adaptation of it. I know I found one that is the Laurence Olivier adaptation on YouTube. I think it's free on YouTube. There's another one on YouTube. I think there's also one on Amazon Prime UK that has Andrew Garfield in it. I believe he's playing Hamlet. So I'm really excited to reread it and to watch an adaptation of it. But yes, so that's what I've read, what I'm currently reading. Now thinking about what I want to read. So I have a few books on our little bookshelf that you can't see, and it's way up above me. I've added some books on Libby that I can read on my Kindle, so I really want to prioritize reading books on my Kindle. I know it's not as much fun as me holding up like a physical book, but I really want to save money and not buy as many books. Also, I need to travel with these books back to New York at some point, so it would just be better for my suitcase as well. Although we do already have quite a few books here that I get to choose from and read physically, but I think I really want to read a good amount on my Kindle and on my phone. So maybe I can go through some of the books that I have potentially to read on my Kindle. I can also show you some of the books I have on my bookshelf. Okay, so first we have Zen in the Art of Writing by Ray Bradbury. I wanted to read this book, or I found out about this book through Books Unbound, which is the wonderful podcast from Ariel Bassett and Raylene LeMay. It's my favorite bookish podcast on the planet. Someone in my last video said that they could see how many Books Unbound books made it to my TBR, and it's true. I get so many book recommendations from Ariel and Raylene, and they have become favorites. So I have high hopes and high expectations when Ariel and Raylene recommend a book. My flight over here was a red-eye. It was overnight, and so I was trying to rest on the plane, but I can't sleep on planes, so I was just trying to rest my eyes, and I was listening to Books Unbound, but I started from their first episode, and I'm re-listening to the whole podcast from beginning to end, which I am just having the best time ever. And in one of the earlier episodes, Ariel talks about this book, Zen and the Art of Writing by Ray Bradbury, and it's a nonfiction from Ray Bradbury about writing, and the way that she was talking about it really intrigued me. So that's on my Kindle Reads list. We also have the 2 books from A.O. Ivy that I was telling you about. We also have Godmisham Park by Jill Hornby. I just want to read all of the Jane Austen historical fiction books. And so that is a Jane Austen inspired historical fiction. Andromeda by Teresa Bowman. I saw someone on social media talking about it. I don't remember who, but it sounded interesting. People from My Neighborhood by Hiromi Kawakami. I read Strange Weather in Tokyo by Hiromi Kawakami in 2024, and I really liked it. And that is a short story collection from her, I believe. Then Wedding Toasts I'll Never Give by Ada Calhoun. That is another Books Unbound book. I think Ariel recommended it, and it sounded really interesting, speaking about marriage and relationships. And again, Ariel makes everything, and Raylene, they just make everything sound interesting, and they make me want to read everything that they read. The next one is Martyr by Kaveh Akbar. I have heard so many amazing things about this book, and I want to understand. I want to understand the amazing things. So that's another one I'm super excited to read, and I have a feeling that I'm going to like it. I don't remember exactly what it's about. I think it's about this young man interviewing an older woman. That's like all that I remember from the description, but I remember reading the synopsis and thinking, ooh, that sounds like I would really enjoy it. The next one is My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Ottessa Moshfegh. I feel like it's one of those quintessential sad girl novels, which are very trendy. I'm not like the trendiest reader. I kind of just like to read whatever sounds interesting to me. I don't really look too much into trends, although I am interested in what people are enjoying. Then Ariel and Raylene. I think Ariel was talking about it in the earlier episodes of Books Unbound when I was on my flight, and she was talking about it, and I was like, oh, like, again, Ariel just makes everything sound so interesting. And I thought, you know what, like, I just want to understand the hype. I feel like I'm not really one of those people where I'll read something when it's trending. I kind of wait a little bit and kind of let the hype die down, and then I'll read it. Let me know if you're the same way as well, if you can relate. But that's one of those books for me. It's about a young girl basically like intentionally hibernating for a year because she just doesn't want to deal with like life and the world, I think. And that's honestly a really interesting concept. I also know everyone that reads Ottessa Moshfegh is obsessed with her as an author, so I'm just intrigued, basically, and I really want to read it. Another one is The Sound of a Wild Snail Eating. That's, I think, another Books Unbound book by Elizabeth Tova Bailey, but I have heard other people talking about it, and I believe it's a nature nonfiction, and if you know me, you know I love nature nonfiction books, so that's another one. The Girl in the Tower I already read in January. It was a favorite. I think I saved these in 2024, so these aren't as new. Hans Brinker or The Silver Skates, that's a bit more of like a December read, so I don't think I'm going to read that one. We have A Little Princess by Frances Hodgson Burnett, The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson, which is the first Mistborn book. I have a list in my phone of my 2025 TBR, and one category of the list is books Leon wants me to read, and if you don't know who Leon is, he's my husband. The one book he wants me to read is Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. He really likes Brandon Sanderson's books, and I made a whole list for Leon of books I want him to read, and my list is like 25, 30 books that I want him to read, and he gave me one, which he's very generous, and I am just very annoying. Like, read every single book that I love so we could talk about it. The next book is The Summer Book by Tove Jansson. That's another book that I've been wanting to read for years, and I want to read more Tove Jansson. She is the writer of The Moomins, as you can see from the 2 books below that one. And then the next one is The Bear and the Nightingale, which is one of my favorite books from 2024, so I've already read that one. Then we have The Full Moon Coffee Shop by Mei Mochizuki. This one I saw in a bookshop this past December, and it sounded really cute. Then we have The Death of Ivan Ilyich, which is part of my 2025 TBR by Leo Tolstoy. Kitchen by Banana Yoshimoto, which I actually have on my bookshelves that I can read from a physical copy. The Boy and the Dog by Seishu Hayes. This is a book that I got last summer. I have a physical copy at home, but I don't have a copy here, so I could read this on my Kindle. Then I have Before the Coffee Gets Cold and Tales from the Cafe by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. I read Before the Coffee Gets Cold, or I listened to it as an audiobook years ago, and I really want to reread it and read the whole series, but physically. So that's why those are on there. Then Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes. I have been saying that I'm going to read this book for ages. We might potentially read it for the Well-Read Book Club if you guys vote for it. So we'll see about that one. Then The Vegetarian by Han Kang. That's another one that I've been interested in reading. Then we have Miss Ice Sandwich by Mieko Kawakami. Mieko Kawakami is one of my favorite writers, and Miss Ice Sandwich is one of the only books I haven't read from her. Then A Psalm for the Wild Boat by Becky Chambers is a sci-fi, kind of like a cozy sci-fi is what I'm getting from the vibe of the book. That might be one of the picks for sci-fi for March for my Well-Read Book Club. If you guys pick it, if not, I'll read it by myself. And then the last two are from Haruki Murakami. What I talk about when I talk about running and After Dark. After Dark is a shorter novel, and what I talk about when I talk about running is a nonfiction. I believe about running and writing. Those are all the books that I could potentially read on my Kindle, and I'm really excited about all of them. I might add more as well. Those are just the ones that I have on my phone for now. I am looking at a list on my phone, and it's for my Well-Read Book Club, and the 4 options for March for sci-fi are Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes, A Psalm for the Wild Boat by Becky Chambers, An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green, which is influenced by Books Unbound. I can't help myself. It just sounds amazing. And Hank Green, I love the Green brothers, the Vlog brothers, Hank and John Green. They're both fantastic. They're such great writers and just great humans. That is Hank Green's first book, and it is sci-fi. And then the 4th one that I'm kind of questioning whether I want to include it or not is The Ministry of Time by Colleen Bradley. I've heard mixed things about it. I've heard that the ending is kind of not great, so I don't know if I'm going to read that one or not. We'll see. But those are the plans for the Well-Read Book Club for March. I still have to read Hamlet for February. I quickly want to show you guys my 2025 TBR because I think that that could be fun. As you can see, I made a section for Game of Tomes books and then for the Well-Read Book Club. The Well-Read Book Club, I've only picked one book that we're definitely going to be reading. All the other months I have you guys vote on a poll on Fable, but this one is the only one that I have personally picked myself, and that's Mansfield Park because it's my last Jane Austen and I really want to read it with you guys, so we're reading it in May. And then the literary fiction section, as you can see the books on there, I can tick off The Snow Child, which is so exciting. Some books that I have on my bookshelf that are also on here are The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa, Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis, I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Harpman, and My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. So those books I can read physically because I have them on my shelves, which is exciting. The other ones I can get on my Kindle if I want to read them while I'm in England. And then I have some extra literary fictions that I can read. Another one I have on my shelves is Lonely Castle in the Mirror by Mizuki Tsujimura. Blue Sisters I've really been wanting to read, and it just came out in paperback, and I love the UK edition, so I don't know about that one. And then Before the Coffee Gets Cold I have on my Kindle. Walk the Blue Fields, Faber and Faber's coming out with a new edition that I really want to get my hands on from Claire Keegan because she's one of my favorite writers. Then we have Murakami, and another one I have on my shelves is More Days at the Murasaki Bookshop by Satoshi Yagisawa, so I could read that one physically as well. Then we have classics, we have Mansfield Park, Master and Margarita I have at home in New York, and Leon wants to read that one with me, so we're going to do a buddy read. Potentially during one of his breaks because he's very busy with his schoolwork. Madame Bovary, The Death of Ivan Ilyich, A Passage to India, The Sorrows of Young Werther, Wide Sargasso Sea by Jean Rhys. That one I was thinking of maybe reading sooner rather than later and getting it on my Kindle. A Study in Scarlet and The Lottery by Shirley Jackson I want to maybe save for autumn 2025. And then the extra classics I have on here: Frankenstein, potentially; North and South, potentially; Jamaica Inn by Daphne du Maurier, potentially; The Captain's Daughter by Pushkin, potentially; and The Adventures of Tom Bombadil I do have physically on my bookshelf, so I could also read that one physically as well. Then, as you can see, books Leon wants me to read. Just Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. So I don't know when I will get to Mistborn, but yes, those are all of the books that I have in mind. I just went through like 30 to 40 books. Apologize for that, but I hope that that was fun. I don't know exactly what I'm going to read. Maybe you guys can help me. I think that that's what I want out of this video, is for you to look at all these books that I showed you and maybe yell at me in the comments, read this one, read that one, or tell me what you think I would enjoy or what I would read. I might also just be a mood reader and just read whatever sounds good to me in the moment. That's usually what I do. Let me know what you think of all of these books. I really want your input and your advice and your recommendations. Why I read The Snow Child mainly was because so many of you were recommending it to me. So I just want to say a really big thank you, because you're the reason why I read it, and it's now a new favorite. So I fully trust your recommendations and I want more of them. So please give me more of your recommendations. You guys truly are the best. Every time I read the comments, you're just so kind and so sweet, and you just feel like my closest friends. So just sending all of my love to you, and I hope you're reading some amazing books. I will see you very soon in another video, and as always, happy reading!